Hello everyone, this is your weather woman meteorologist Amy Metz. It's August 27th, this time of year that we usually are busy in the tropics, and sure enough, there are some major players going on right now. A lot of what we're looking at here over the Atlantic on the right side, where it's dark right now, is not likely to be bothering anybody on land in the coming days. There is quite a bit of dry air between what we're seeing here, and besides that, it's expected to move north for various reasons. Although what's going on now with Ida and Nora is what is going to be bringing some possible troubles. Already in Cuba, they are experiencing hurricane warnings. While the center of rotation was approaching Havana, it ended up increasing in strength. There's plenty of moisture and plenty of warm sea surface temperatures with very little wind shear that we will go over here so that I can explain to you exactly how and why this will be making landfall and how to prepare so that if you're somewhere along this pathway, and even extending outward for the coming days, there are different types of severe weather that can be experienced even outside of this cone. And I do believe that it could be a little bit more east upon landfall. So strength-wise, right now, a lot of forecasts are showing that there will be a Category 4 hurricane landfall in Louisiana about the same time that there's another landfall in Baja, Mexico. So this is going to skirt very close to Cabo here and bring some conditions a little bit more stormy and wet that could also produce monsoons in the southwest coming here in the next week. But what I want to focus on for now in this forecast will be Ida for the next few minutes here. So go ahead in the comments, and if you have questions, let me know what that is, and I'll go over the basics of what I just described now. So my major concern here is that there's so much moisture available, so as the storm continues towards the even warmer water, it could end up similar to what we saw with Hurricane Laura last year to the day, when rapid intensification in the warmer Gulf of Mexico produced a Category 5. For a brief moment, there was a wind for Category 5 on Hurricane Laura, although the landfall and technical recordings are Category 4. And so you can find more information about that on my Weather Woman Amy Metz YouTube channel. I have that as the 4th or 5th video up there right now on the main page. And so that describes very well what happened there, because this was extremely similar. Now, 80-mile-per-hour winds, that's just 5 miles an hour over the Hurricane Category 1 threshold. That's a bad sign because there's already that warm water there. Now, with Laura, we saw it teetering between the tropical storm and Category 1, similar to this. Aside from the increasing wind speed, there will also be a heightened risk for lightning as the storm continues moving onward. You can see here that there's been just a ton of lightning going on, and in fact it did increase in how much we've had based on space weather that's going on. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with my work, I do have other videos and even a group on Facebook called Space and Earth Weather that describe a little bit about how this kind of stuff can affect us with aurora, where this auroral oval is. You'll see the red for tomorrow's forecast of probable aurora in the sky. And then also these solar flares. So they can have an effect, especially once they get up into this M and X class range, on emergency situations. Let's say we have a large flare and there's people on the ground trying to do search and rescue for the hurricane cleanup. That could cause radio blackouts, so people cannot communicate with each other properly, and along with many other situations. So I'm going to be watching these sunspots as well while these days go forward. And that aurora here, this AE index, for anybody who's even more interested, look up AE index if you like, and whenever it's over 500, one trick I learned is that means there's aurora within that oval that we showed. So back to Ida specifically, with all that lightning, once it gets closer to landfall, all that space weather is going to very much explode with the lightning around this part. Once we get into, let's say, Sunday, as opposed to where right now there's not really that much in this particular storm. So we do see a very rapid decrease in intensity after landfall that I do believe will occur. This is the European model. And as far as right now, what we can see with that is pretty close to actual right now wind speeds. Once I go to the wind gusts, we actually see what becomes more true to the actual winds being observed. I have noticed with this particular model over time. For instance, you see it says 70 miles per hour there, when in fact the National Hurricane Center official source says 80, and we know that they're controlling that differently. So keep this in mind as I use this particular model, that things are actually oftentimes a little more intense in reality than what this will show. So because these sea surface temperatures are warm, and then as we get closer to the shoreline, just like we had with Laura, that shallow water can warm up faster in the summertime. So it's actually even warmer as we get to this stage and then the next stage. So the fact that this becomes more white, more bright, and even larger in size with that width of hurricane force winds, I do agree with, and that would be the valid reasoning for it. So you see those over 100 mile per hour wind gusts and wind speeds with the white. And then a lot of these gusts will continue onward through Alabama, through Georgia, even as far away as that, as this system, because it's so large and it will take on more moisture from the moisture band that is there now, we will be seeing it continue on with severe weather through midweek and possibly even into late next week as it makes its way even farther away. There's not a lot of other storm systems around it that I'll show you more of that in a moment too, to kind of disorganize it or declutter it. So there where the Appalachians are, we did see kind of more of a dispersion and a decrease in those winds, but then they pick back up on the other side. So that wind shear will play a role in changing, let's say, the amount of severe weather reports in this region, but that does not mean that just because things are decreasing that the coastline here will be safe. So I'll just keep on forecasting and sharing how to best prepare. So some of that important information about whether or not to evacuate or how to prepare for a storm can be found. My favorite sources are by NOAA and the National Weather Service, so look that up if you're unfamiliar with this sort of situation. And keep in mind that yes, these warmer waters, they are in fact much warmer along the coast, and this goes out through the last week. So this last freeze frame will show right there the latest, and it is warmer near Texas. So things that we use to forecast placement, exact location of where the landfall will be, is the warm water. These storms like to follow warm water. So if we think about what's going on right now, we almost see a trail right toward the warm water there. Another major contributor to how it will be directed is going to be the wind shear. So now that we have seen the sea surface temperatures very clearly, I'll dig into some wind shear. So that would take us back to right now. And then in the upper levels, wind shear is simply wind, speed, and direction, speed or direction, changing with height. So here we are at the surface, seeing that circular motion over the storm, and you can expect to see circular motion the whole way up with most hurricanes, especially when they get stronger. But as we move up, more where the clouds are, the low-level clouds, and then where the mid-level clouds can lie. This is where a lot of the moisture and rain line will start. This is where we start to get to what are called steering winds by a lot of meteorologists. More of a little technical term used to make it simpler, just that it steers the storm. So here is where kind of the middle level of the storm will be. And already we see that some is being directed westward, some is being directed northward. And we can remember that there's a lot of warm water right here and almost a trail here. So I would expect for those reasons that yes, it would want to follow here. The vectors are a little stronger on this north side, meaning that that pole could be a little more intense there. And another level will tell us some more stories here. And these are pretty good estimates for winds, but not exact, just to remember that and reiterate it. This is a computer model. So here, we're not really seeing any wind. It's not moving much. And what that says to me is that this big high pressure will have a larger role in pushing the hurricane a certain direction. And this is going to be kind of like a nice, easy spot for it to go into because it takes the path of least resistance, I think is one easy way. So right there, I can see very well why the models would be tending toward these central Louisiana coastline landfall. However, I still would not be surprised if other features kind of speed things up or change a little and do drag it a bit more toward the east or toward the Mississippi and Louisiana state line. So those are, I've been more so forecasting for landfall right around here. However, there's nothing very different about what these models or the National Hurricane Center are forecasting from what I'm saying now. So I'll go ahead and play this model out one more time just to watch the features change. So, and see if I can agree with this after I open up the surface map, which is more then going to be the more high resolution, accurate data that's collected by people. So the interesting thing here too I wanted to point out is these landfalls are very likely going to occur at the same time. There's nothing to really stall out either of them, which is a good thing because when these slow down a lot, that's when we get that massive flooding because we're already going to have storm surge to the east of the eye wall, wherever that occurs, extending out wherever these very strong winds are. So all this will have storm surge, but then this strong rain will also be pushing in. So luckily, these storms should be moving along pretty fast, and I could imagine here that there will be a good chance for tornadoes in this area, especially along the eastern seaboard. I was curious about that because I don't believe it will be that strong. There, of course, will very well likely be waterspouts and tornadoes as this makes landfall, but not a very huge number. I do believe there could be more as this exits into the Atlantic. So I'll take a peek here at any comments that might be there and see if there's anything else that should be reviewed here before I sign off. And in the meantime, I'll let this loop on the infrared satellite so you can see just how much moisture is out there and is available. And with the space weather, there are some factors and studies that have been done that make it seem as though some of those solar flares can actually increase our cloud cover. So those factors out with the sun and what's going on there right now, it tells me that there is even a likelihood that we could have an increased amount of weather here from that. So that whatever's here now with all this moisture, it will very well funnel in and fuel up Ida even more as it moves through the Gulf and into those warmer waters. And I don't see any comments on here right now, so if anybody comes up with some questions or wants to give some feedback on anything, feel free in the comments here, or you can find me on Facebook also as Weather Woman. I have a page there where I share even more text products and different forecasts, and a lot of studies, especially with the space weather I have been studying in school now, post-grad. So here, wow, I'm really interested to see how this might affect Mexico City because this is one of the first times I've seen the satellite imagery today since our last set of solar flares, and I'm seeing it even bigger than I had last time. And bigger, I mean more intense rain bands reaching farther out from the center of Nora. So after we had another storm just passing Mexico City, which was Grace, dropping a lot of rain. That leaves me wondering how saturated the ground is. So this is also the time of year where after having so much rain in these areas along slopes, we could see mudslides. So this is going to be actually a major player, Nora, even for Central America, as we can see these big moisture bands pushing up into terrain. So we're getting some funneling in from the tropics, which is feeding in more moisture that then is wrapping around. And orographic lifting here is a feature, a mechanism that occurs when any kind of moisture or air is pushing into a mountain range it has to go somewhere. And so usually with mountains, it ends up going up and around. That can increase winds, but also push the air to a cooler part of the atmosphere where it ends up condensing just from changing its temperature and pressure. It will form a raindrop. So right here we're seeing that explosively. This is an extreme case of orographic lifting that causes flash flooding and in many cases mudslides if it's persistent. And I know there have been recent storms that pass this area, so this would be considered persistent for a lot of these different plumes here. So do be careful for that. It's not just where these hurricanes make landfall that you need to consider evacuations. So remember along slopes, places where water gathers, if you're along a stream, and it's in a situation like this with such abundant moisture, even along the Mississippi River and everything that feeds into that, we could be looking at rises of water that will fill entire communities, even if it's maybe 10 feet of a gradient inland. So be careful for this. I do believe that rain and lightning are going to be very big contributors here to unfortunate fatalities, because with these storms, 9 out of 10 deaths do occur in the water. So if you see some waters that people are starting to drive through, in most cases it's actually better to just turn around and not even attempt it because it's so easy for cars to get swept away or stop working when the water ends up in the exhaust pipe. So be careful out there if you're enjoying these storms in any way. I hope that everybody can be prepared for this the best way for them. So I will be producing more videos, and I said I would end here with the surface map to get a better idea of exact landfalls. So this again is going to be more accurate information than the weather models, a little more precise. It appears different, so it's not as easy to share and broadcast. But what I'm seeing here is a kink in an isobar and a trough. So with both of these different features going on in the same place, I do believe that this sort of I believe ridging with that pressure, the ridging that's going on here can also allow this storm to be swinging a little more east. So I do see reason why my personal forecast of a landfall being centered more around here, let's say where the mouse is, like state line, Louisiana, Mississippi, as opposed to central Louisiana. This would be one of those reasons. So I'll just be watching this very carefully. These are very strong players, that pool of warm water, the low wind shear, and then this ridge. So there's quite a few ways this could go, and I think that the most major driver here will be this high pressure that is going to have the stronger winds associated with it at the surface here. So as this spins this way and Ida is moving north, it will help propel it north, and that's another reason I think, a little bit more eastward pull. So anybody in the New Orleans area, all the way to Mississippi and coastal Alabama, coastal Pensacola area into Florida, these regions with all of that moisture, like I was talking about, even as far away as the panhandle of Florida, we could be seeing that type of flooding along riverways with the surge pushing into the flash flooding torrential downpours, the way that these coastlines are built up. So perhaps we'll be seeing the serial water skier. Because I mentioned it, I want to show it. I'm going to go to my Facebook page, The World of Weather. There is a guy he's in, I want to say Fort Walton Beach, and he does water skiing on the water. So I should be able to find this under my videos. I posted it here on my videos when this woman who I used to live near but did not know at the time, she sends me these videos. Here he is. So watch him.
He's at it again. Locally hated. My favourite redneck. Courtesy of Tropical Storm Claudette. Woo! Go Birds!
So I'm not sure if he's like,
love it.
He may have two water skis. Yeah, that might be 2 water skis, or it looks almost like a snowboard. So that really cracked me up. Out there, people really know how to have fun in these. That was that last one happened in a tropical storm that was actually kind of far away, but had those flooding waters. So again, it was far away, but over here in Florida, that's what the roads looked like. So not the kind of thing where they had to evacuate, but it's where you don't want to be on the roadways, where people are happy that they have their stash for hurricane season to have enough water and food. Because in some of those cases, even with that storm, the power did still go out. So it's best to have things you can grill up, some ice packs and some coolers prepped before these things hit. So for more information on just how to stay prepared, go ahead, like and follow my Facebook page and stay informed here or just ask questions. So enjoy the weather and stay prepared, not scared. Thanks for watching. Your Weather Woman, meteorologist.